What happens when a prince walks onto live television thinking the rules don't apply to him? In just 31 seconds, one comment would turn a simple morning interview into the most shocking meltdown ever seen on British breakfast television. Good Morning Britain was supposed to be a routine appearance. Prince Harry had been making the rounds, talking about his latest projects, his life away from royal duties, and what he'd been up to. The studio was bright, the cameras were rolling, and millions of viewers were tuning in with their morning tea. Susanna Reid, one of the most respected hosts in the business, sat across from him with her notes prepared and her questions ready. She'd interviewed countless celebrities, politicians, and yes, even royals before. This was supposed to be straightforward, but from the very first question, something felt off. Susanna started with something simple, something easy. "So wonderful to have you here this morning. Let's talk about your recent, charitable work. You've been quite busy, haven't you?" Harry shifted in his seat. His jaw was tight. "Yeah, I've been doing what I can, trying to make a real difference, unlike some people who just sit behind desks and talk about making a difference." The comment landed like a slap. Susanna kept her smile, professional as always. "Well, I think many people work very hard in different ways. Your brother has been quite active with his own initiatives as well. Have you two been in touch about possibly collaborating?" That's when Harry's face changed. His eyes narrowed. "Why does every interview have to come back to my brother? Why can't I just be here talking about my own work without someone bringing him up?" Susanna remained calm. "I simply thought that two brothers working towards similar goals might find common ground. It was just a question." "It's never just a question with you people," Harry snapped back. "It's always an angle, always trying to create drama where there isn't any." The studio went quiet. The producers in the control room exchanged nervous glances. Susanna, to her credit, didn't flinch. "I assure you, there's no angle here. We're simply having a conversation. Perhaps we can move on. Tell us about your upcoming trip. You're heading to Africa soon, correct?" Harry leaned back, crossing his arms. "Yeah, I'm going to Africa. A continent that actually appreciates the work I do. Not like here where everyone just wants to tear you down." "I don't think that's quite fair," Susanna said gently. "Many people here support your work. The response to your foundation has been largely positive." "Largely positive?" Harry laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's your way of saying half the country hates me. Why don't you just say it?" Susanna took a breath. "I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that you have a lot of supporters. But I do want to ask you about some of the criticism you faced. Some people have questioned the costs of your security detail and how that's being funded. Can you address that?" Harry's face went red. "Here we go. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You invite me here under the pretense of discussing my charity work, and then you ambush me with tabloid nonsense." "It's not tabloid nonsense," Susanna replied, her voice steady. "It's a legitimate question that taxpayers have raised. You're a public figure who has chosen to step back from official duties while still maintaining certain privileges. People simply want transparency." "Transparency?" Harry's voice rose. "You want transparency? How about the transparency of this show? How much are you getting paid to sit there and ask me these insulting questions? How much did the network pay to get me here so you could boost your ratings?" The crew behind the cameras froze. Susanna's co-host looked uncomfortable, unsure whether to jump in, but Susanna held her ground. "My salary is a matter of public record, actually, and we didn't pay you to be here. You came of your own accord to discuss your initiatives. I'm simply doing my job by asking questions our viewers want answered." "Your viewers?" Harry said mockingly. "Your viewers don't care about real issues. They just want gossip. They want to see me squirm. Well, I'm not going to sit here and be disrespected." "No one is disrespecting you," Susanna said firmly. "But I do need to point out that you came on this program voluntarily. We agreed to discuss your charitable work, which we have been doing. Asking about funding and public concerns is part of that conversation." Harry stood up suddenly, his microphone pack pulling at his jacket. "You know what your problem is, Susanna? You think, because you sit in that chair, you have some kind of authority. You think you can question me, judge me, analyze every decision I make. But you don't know anything about my life. You don't know what it's like to live under the microscope I've lived under." Susanna remained seated, calm. "You're absolutely right. I don't know what that's like, and I have empathy for the unique challenges you've faced. But that doesn't mean you're above answering reasonable questions." "Reasonable?" Harry's voice cracked with anger. "There's nothing reasonable about any of this. From the moment I walked in here, you've been trying to make me look bad. Every question has been designed to trap me. That's simply not true, Susanna said. I've asked you about your charity work, your upcoming projects, and yes, some questions about public concerns. That's what journalism is. If you only want to answer pre-approved questions that make you look good, perhaps a talk show isn't the right format. Harry pointed at her. Don't lecture me about formats. I've done hundreds of these interviews. I know when someone has it out for me. I don't have it out for you, Susanna replied. But I'm not going to sit here and only ask you softball questions either. Our viewers deserve more than that. They deserve honest conversation. Honest? Harry laughed bitterly. You wouldn't know honest if it hit you in the face. This whole thing is a setup. Your producers probably planned this from the start. Get me on, make me angry, get your viral moment. Well, congratulations. You got it. Susanna's expression remained professional, but there was a hint of disappointment in her eyes. If that's truly what you think, then I'm sorry you feel that way. But I can assure you, the only agenda here is to have a meaningful conversation, something that seems increasingly difficult. Meaningful? Harry's voice dripped with sarcasm. There's nothing meaningful about this. You sit here in your comfortable studio, making your comfortable salary, asking your comfortable questions, and you think you're doing something important. You're not. You're just another talking head reading from a script. The insult hung in the air. Susanna's co-host finally spoke up. I think perhaps we all need to take a breath here. But Harry wasn't finished. No, I'm done taking breaths. I'm done playing nice. You people have been after me for years. Every relationship, every decision, every move I make gets picked apart by people like you. People who have never had to deal with a fraction of what I've dealt with. Susanna spoke carefully. And as I said, I have empathy for that. But you've also chosen to remain in the public eye. You've written books, done interviews, created documentaries. You can't have it both ways. You can't court media attention when it suits you and then complain about scrutiny when it doesn't. That's rich coming from you, Harry shot back. You make your living off other people's lives. You sit there and judge everyone who comes on this show. Well, who are you to judge anyone? I'm not judging you, Susanna said, her patience clearly wearing thin but still maintaining her composure. I'm asking you questions. There's a difference, the way you ask. The questions is judgment, Harry insisted. The tone, the implication, all of it. You think you're so clever, so subtle, but I see right through it. Susanna took a visible breath. I think we might need to take a commercial break. Of course you do, Harry said. Run away when things get uncomfortable. That's what you people do best. I'm not running away from anything, Susanna replied, an edge finally creeping into her voice. I'm trying to salvage what's left of this interview, but if you're determined to be hostile and accusatory, then perhaps it's best we do end things here. Harry ripped off his microphone. Finally, something we agree on. This was a waste of my time from the start. Then why did you come? Susanna asked pointedly. Harry paused, his hand on the microphone pack at his waist. I came here thinking maybe, just maybe, I'd get a fair shake. I thought you might be different from the others, but you're all the same. You're all vultures. That's unfair, and you know it, Susanna said, her voice rising slightly. We've given you a platform to speak. We've listened to you talk about your work. The moment we ask anything that challenges you even slightly, you fall apart. I'm not falling apart, Harry snapped. I'm calling out your nonsense. No, Susanna said firmly. You're lashing out because you don't like being questioned. You want everyone to simply nod along and agree with everything you say. That's not a conversation. That's a monologue. Harry's face was flushed. I don't have to stand here and listen to this. You're right. You don't, Susanna agreed. The door is right there. But before you go, I want you to know that we invited you here in good faith. We prepared thoughtful questions. We gave you every opportunity to share your perspective. And you've responded with insults and accusations. That says far more about you than it does about us. Save your speech, Harry muttered, fumbling with the microphone pack. Producer rushed over to help him, but Harry waved him away. I can do it myself. Susanna watched him struggle for a moment before speaking again. Is this really how you want this to end? With you storming off set? I'm not storming off, Harry insisted, even as he was clearly doing exactly that. I'm removing myself from a toxic situation. By toxic, you mean a situation where someone asked you direct questions, Susanna clarified. Harry finally got the microphone pack off and threw it onto the chair. Think whatever you want. I don't care. Clearly, Susanna said quietly. Harry turned to leave but stopped. You know what? You want your moment? You want your story? Here it is. This right here is why I left in the first place. People like you, shows like this, media that pretends to care but really just wants to exploit. You're all the same. Susanna stood up now, facing him directly. I understand you've had difficult experiences with the media, but lumping everyone together and lashing out at people who are simply trying to do their jobs isn't fair, and it's not productive. Don't talk to me about fair, Harry said, his voice shaking. Nothing about my life has been fair. Many people have difficult lives, Susanna replied. That doesn't give anyone the right to treat others poorly. Harry stepped closer to the desk. I haven't treated anyone poorly. I came here. I tried to have a conversation, and you turned it into an interrogation. I asked you 4 questions, Susanna said, holding up fingers. 4. About your charity work, your family, your funding, and your upcoming trip. If that's an interrogation in your mind, then I genuinely don't know what to tell you. It's not what you asked, it's how you asked it, Harry protested. I asked them respectfully and professionally, Susanna countered. You're the one who became defensive and aggressive. Harry shook his head. I'm not doing this anymore. This is pointless. Finally, something we can agree on, Susanna said, sitting back down. Perhaps next time you'll think twice before agreeing to a live interview if you can't handle basic questions. That stopped Harry in his tracks. Excuse me? Susanna looked directly at the camera, then back at Harry. You heard me. If you can't engage in a normal conversation without taking everything as a personal attack, maybe interview formats aren't for you. How dare you, Harry said, his voice low. How dare I what? Susanna asked. Speak honestly? Isn't that what you've been demanding this whole time? Honesty? Harry's hands clenched into fists at his sides. You have no idea who you're talking to. Actually, I do, Susanna said calmly. I'm talking to someone who agreed to come on this program, who is now having a tantrum because he doesn't like being treated like every other guest we have. A tantrum? Harry's voice rose again. You think this is a tantrum? What would you call it? Susanna asked. You've insulted me, insulted the show, insulted the viewers, and now you're standing there acting like you're the victim. If that's not a tantrum, I don't know what is. Harry looked around at the crew, all of whom were watching in stunned silence. You're all witnessing this, right? You're all seeing how she's treating me? No one responded. The crew members looked at each other uncomfortably. Susanna spoke again. They're witnessing you refusing to answer simple questions and then melting down when called out on it. I'm not melting down. Harry insisted, his voice cracking slightly. Then what would you call this? Susanna gestured at him. Harry opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. I'm defending myself against your attacks. What attacks? Susanna asked, genuinely confused now. Please, tell me specifically what I said that was an attack, Harry stammered. You questioned my security costs. I asked you to address public concerns about funding. Susanna corrected. That's not an attack. That's journalism. You brought up my brother, Harry added. I asked if you two might collaborate on charity work, Susanna said. Again, not an attack. A question. Harry was grasping now. Your tone, your whole attitude. My tone has been professional throughout, Susanna interrupted. Even as you've become increasingly hostile, I've remained calm and tried to keep this conversation on track. This is unbelievable, Harry muttered. What's unbelievable is that you can't see how you're behaving, Susanna replied. You came on this show with a chip on your shoulder, and the moment anything didn't go exactly how you wanted, you exploded. I didn't explode, Harry protested weakly. Susanna raised an eyebrow. You're standing in the middle of our studio, red in the face, having refused to answer questions, insulted everyone present, and thrown your microphone. But sure, you didn't explode. Harry's shoulders sagged slightly. For a moment, he looked like he might actually reflect on what was happening, but then his defenses went back up. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Perhaps I don't, Susanna acknowledged, but I do understand basic courtesy. And I do understand that millions of people are watching this right now, seeing you completely fall apart over simple interview questions. That seemed to hit home. Harry looked at the cameras as if remembering they were there. His face went from red to pale. I think, Susanna continued, that you should probably leave now, before this gets any worse. Harry nodded slowly, then stopped. You're kicking me off? I'm suggesting you leave before you embarrass yourself further, Susanna clarified. No, Harry said, finding his anger again. No, you don't get to do this. You don't get to push me and then act like I'm the problem. I haven't pushed you at all, Susanna said tiredly. I've asked you questions. That's literally my job. Your job is to make people look bad, Harry accused. My job is to inform our viewers, Susanna corrected. And right now, you're doing a fine job of making yourself look bad without any help from me. Harry pointed at her again. You're going to regret this. Susanna's expression hardened. Is that a threat? It's a fact, Harry said. When people see how you treated me, they'll see exactly what happened, Susanna interrupted. This is all being recorded, every word, every moment. So yes, people will see. They'll see me asking reasonable questions and you having a complete meltdown. Harry looked around wildly, as if searching for someone to back him up. This is insane. You're twisting everything. I'm not twisting anything, Susanna said. I'm simply responding to what you're saying and doing. A producer finally stepped forward. Perhaps we should all just take a moment. No, Harry cut him off. I'm leaving. I'm done with this circus. Then go, Susanna said. Simply. Harry stared at her for a long moment. You're really not going to apologize? For what? Susanna asked. For doing my job? No, I'm not going to apologize for that. Harry shook his head in disbelief. Unbelievable. This is absolutely unbelievable. You've said that already, Susanna noted. Because it is, Harry insisted. I've never been treated so poorly in my life. Susanna's patience finally snapped. Oh, please. You've been treated with nothing but respect. The fact that you can't see that is the real problem here. Harry's mouth opened in shock. Respect? You call this respect? Yes, Susanna said firmly. I call treating you like any other guest, asking you legitimate questions, and maintaining my professionalism even as you insult me repeatedly, respect. If you want to be coddled and praised constantly, hire a PR team. Don't come on a news program. Harry was speechless for a moment. Then he found his voice. You know what? Fine. You win. You got what you wanted. Your confrontation, your drama, your ratings boost. I hope it was worth it. What I wanted, Susanna said slowly, was a productive conversation about your charitable work. That's all I ever wanted. You're the one who turned this into something else. Harry laughed bitterly. Keep telling yourself that. I will, Susanna replied, because it's the truth. Harry turned and walked toward the exit. He made it a few steps before turning back one more time. This will follow you. People will remember how you treated me. I'm sure they will, Susanna agreed. They'll remember that I treated you fairly and you couldn't handle it. Harry's jaw tightened. Goodbye, Susanna. Goodbye, she replied evenly. As Harry walked off set, his footsteps echoed in the silent studio. The crew remained frozen, unsure what to do. Susanna sat at her desk, composed despite what had just happened. She looked directly at the camera. Well, she said, her voice steady. That was unexpected. We'll be right back after this break. The cameras cut away, but the damage was done. In just over 10 minutes, what should have been a simple morning interview had devolved into one of the most dramatic exits in talk show history. The crew slowly began moving again, murmurs spreading through the studio. Susanna remained in her chair, taking a sip of water. Her co-host leaned over. Are you okay? She nodded. I'm fine. That was something. He completely lost it, her co-host whispered. He did, Susanna agreed quietly. I genuinely tried to keep it professional. Everyone saw that, he assured her. You were nothing but professional. Susanna glanced at the exit where Harry had disappeared. I almost feel bad for him. He clearly came in expecting something different. He came in expecting to be worshipped, her co-host said. And when you dared to ask real questions, he couldn't handle it. Susanna sighed. It's sad, really. He had an opportunity to talk about work he clearly cares about. Instead, he let his ego get in the way. The producer approached the desk. That was incredible television. But are you sure you're all right? I'm fine, Susanna repeated. It's not the first time a guest has gotten upset, and it won't be the last. Though I'll admit, I didn't expect it from him. Nobody did, the producer agreed. That's what makes it so shocking. As the commercial break continued, Susanna reviewed her notes. She had prepared questions about 3 different charitable initiatives Harry was involved with, questions about his upcoming book that was supposed to be announced during the interview, and questions about his plans for expanding his foundation's work. None of those questions ever got asked. Instead, the interview had derailed almost immediately. Her co-host spoke up again. "Do you think he'll say anything publicly? After this, I mean?" Susanna shrugged. "Probably. He'll likely claim he was ambushed or mistreated. It's easier than admitting he couldn't handle a normal interview." "The footage doesn't lie," the producer pointed out. "Anyone who watches will see exactly what happened." "True," Susanna acknowledged, "but that won't stop people from having opinions." The floor manager gave a signal, 30 seconds until they were back on air. Susanna straightened her papers and checked her appearance in the monitor. She looked calm, professional, completely unbothered by what had just transpired. "And we're back," she said as the cameras turned on. "As you just witnessed, our interview with Prince Harry ended rather abruptly. We had hoped to discuss his charitable initiatives and upcoming projects, but unfortunately, that conversation didn't go as planned. We always strive to ask thoughtful, relevant questions of our guests, and we regret when those questions aren't received in the spirit they're intended." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "We wish him well and hope that in the future, he'll be more open to engaging in substantive dialogue. Now, let's move on to our next segment." And just like that, the show continued. But the moment had been captured. The outburst, the accusations, the dramatic exit. It would be replayed countless times, analyzed endlessly, debated furiously. Some would side with Harry, claiming he'd been provoked. Others would side with Susanna, pointing out her professionalism throughout. But the facts remained clear. Susanna Reid had asked 4 simple questions. Prince Harry had responded with hostility, insults, and ultimately, a complete meltdown. He had come onto the show expecting special treatment, expecting to be handled with kid gloves, expecting to control the narrative completely. When that didn't happen, when he was treated like any other guest, he couldn't cope. The entitlement had been on full display. The belief that he deserved different treatment, that the normal rules didn't apply to him, that asking him to answer for his choices was somehow an attack. And when confronted with someone who refused to bend to that entitlement, he had fallen apart completely. Susanna had maintained her composure throughout. She had remained professional even as insults were thrown at her. She had tried repeatedly to redirect the conversation, to salvage something productive from the interview. She had given Harry multiple opportunities to reset, to take a breath, to engage properly. He had refused every single one. In the end, he had stormed off set, leaving behind nothing but anger and accusations. He had accomplished nothing except proving that beneath all the talk of wanting honest conversations and authentic connections, he simply wanted praise and agreement. Anything else was viewed as an attack. The studio crew talked about it for days. How strange it had been. How uncomfortable. How shocking. Many of them had worked on hundreds of interviews, thousands of segments. They'd seen celebrities get testy, politicians get defensive, activists get passionate. But they'd rarely seen someone completely self-destruct the way Harry had. He just kept digging, one cameraman said later. Every time Susanna tried to move forward, he'd circle back to being offended. The way he threw that microphone, a sound technician added, like a child having a tantrum. And the accusations? Another crew member chimed in, acting like Susanna had personally wronged him somehow. She was just doing her job. They all agreed on one thing. Susanna had handled it perfectly. She had been firm but fair, calm but not cold, professional but not robotic. She had given Harry every chance to succeed in that interview. He had chosen to fail instead. The interview became a teaching moment in journalism schools. This is how you handle a difficult guest. This is how you maintain control without losing your temper. This is how you stand firm on your principles while remaining respectful. Susanna Reid became the example of grace under pressure. Meanwhile, the questions she had tried to ask remained unanswered. The charitable work went undiscussed in detail. The upcoming projects were never explained. The opportunities to connect with viewers, to share his passion, to make a real impact, all of it was wasted because he couldn't handle being treated like everyone else. In just 31 seconds, from the moment Susanna asked that first question to when Harry's defensiveness became clear, the tone had been set. Everything that followed was inevitable. The escalation, the hostility, the exit. It had all been determined in that first exchange when Harry decided that any question was an attack, any challenge was disrespect, any attempt at normal journalism was persecution. He had walked into that studio thinking he was in control. He had left knowing he wasn't. And that loss of control, that inability to dictate how things went, had revealed everything about who he really was. Not a champion for change or a voice for the voiceless, but someone who couldn't handle the most basic requirement of public life: accountability. Susanna Reid had simply held up a mirror. What Harry saw reflected there was apparently too much for him to bear. So he had lashed out, blamed her for his own reaction, and fled. It was easier than facing the truth, easier than admitting that maybe, just maybe, the problem wasn't everyone else. The problem was him. The interview that was supposed to showcase his work instead showcased his character, or lack thereof, and no amount of later spin could change what millions of people had witnessed with their own eyes. A host trying her best to have a conversation, and a guest determined to be offended by anything and everything. In the end, Good Morning Britain got their dramatic moment, just not the kind anyone had planned for.